Holidays are over. Heavy in the paint. Have no fear. Gerald Brown is here. Old fat man Rick Mahorn somewhere, but nevertheless, I'm holding it down as always. Make sure you subscribe as we check out annual episodes of Heavy in the Paint and bringing back my brother from another mother. Love him to death. Sometimes you make you want to strangle him. But nevertheless, always appreciate his insight. The legendary Mr. David Cain. Uh, hello, David.
Hello, my brother. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. So David, and for all the people that's out there, Dave and I talk on a consistent basis, and everybody calls him Dave. I call him David because you know what? You have to keep him grounded because he was a prodigy. He was one of the talented ball players and stuff, paid his dues and worked hard. And I appreciate his insight. But David, I want to start here because this bothers me. And it really has to do with you. It has to do with you.
Okay.
You are a very modest brother, very modest, humble. You demonstrate humility, you demonstrate kindness, compassion. Ever since I've known you when you was wearing the short sleeve white shirts, church shirts and stuff like that, singing in school.
I get off, man.
But you've always been a very humble guy. You never have let all the success. I mean, you walk around New York City, Harlem, whatever, anybody associated with basketball, your name, they acknowledge you, you acknowledge them, but you never have gotten to a point where you've just gotten like bigger than people.
Appreciate that.
And what bothers me is that everybody has an opinion. I get that. And I'm going into this, so stay with me. But I
Okay.
recently hear that your name is not mentioned among great New York City point guards. And you never say anything about it. Hell, you're not even on social media, but you don't really say anything publicly. Now, I understand, people put out the videos of, point guards and all this other stuff, and you're never mentioned. And I have a problem with that. And just recently saying shout out, and watching Sebastian Telfair give his list.
Mhm.
He mentioned Mark Jackson, saying he was better than them, Rod Strickland. And what bothers me about that, we're getting to a stage of basketball that
Mhm.
people are forgetting players of another era and generation that were very, very good. Yes, you didn't make it to the NBA to a length and all these things, but you were that good and talented that you are still mentioned by guys of that generation. So when you
Mhm.
hear these things like these point guards and hearing certain guys and stuff, and there's no snock and no slight on any of these young brothers that came up and played, and it's no knock on them at all. How do you feel about that when you're not mentioned and acknowledged?
It doesn't really bother me, G. You know that. Like you said, I'm not on social media. I'm I'm not even in basketball circles for the most part. But I think at least for me, and it's funny you say that because like a few other people they feel strong that way and they go hard in the paint for me as far as stuff like that. But I'll be like, but I kind of understand it. Like you said, one, I didn't make it to the league, so that's you have the fraction of players from New York who made it to
But
that.
there's some players, it's not to cut you off, but there's some players that did make it to the
But I
league.
but I know. What I'm saying is you have another fraction that's like street ball legends that played a lot. You got to remember, I only played it. I didn't play a lot of street ball, contrary to what people might think. I think I only played in Uptown. I mean, in the tennis class at Rucker only 2 times.
But
So
hold on a second. Hold on a second. Let's back up. Let's back up. You played with the Gauchos,
yeah,
right?
hmm
And
but I don't hear nobody being talked about from back then.
with the New York City Gauchos, and how dominant were your teams?
We was probably one of the most dominant ever.
Okay, and some of the players that you played with.
Jamal Mashburn, God bless Dave Edwards, God bless Conrad McCray, God bless Eric Mobley, my man Ronnie Arnold. Sometimes Kenny Anderson played with us. My man Cook. So we had a legendary squad.
Okay,
But But I don't really take that personal, G. But like I said, I'm not in basketball circles, so I might not be as up on what the current convos is. But for the most part, for the little that I know, I don't hear nobody talking about nobody. I mean, Mash was an NBA almost all-star caliber player. I don't hear nobody talking about Mash. Or I don't even hear nobody talk about KA too much no more. Unless it's like the documentary as far as guys who made it to the NBA. Bro, we in our 50s now. Nobody, we talked last time, like everyone's gonna get phased out eventually. You heard how Bassett was just talking about Mark and Rod. Those the two big bros, legendary from over us. And he talk about them like they nobody. So why would I be mad if ain't nobody talking about me?
Sebastian Telfair. But no, but even when they put out the documentary Point Guards
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, and just to be clear, you played on that legendary team. You
Mm-hmm.
started on that team, right?
Yeah. But you
You
got to remember though, G, it's so many good ball players out
yes.
here. Like, so it's like where you draw the line at? Like, I mean, even I look at guys who didn't make to the league. Just say if you was McDonald's All American. I didn't make that. So that's a level that it'll be perceived of guys who made that in different years that's a higher achievement. Okay. My college career didn't go as planned, even though I had the great senior year, but it wasn't the college career for somebody my accolades coming out of high school. Okay, cool. I'm good. Like I'm very self-aware. Didn't make the league. Cool. I'm good with that. So, and I didn't play a lot of street ball.
But
So
hold on.
I don't
Let's
need
back
to be
up.
in those conversations,
Let's
bro.
back up. Let's back up because you were heavily recruited coming out of high school. What are
Uh-huh.
some of the point guards that was in your class in that time out of the New York tri-state area?
Bro, the main two was just Kenny Anderson and Bob Hurley, really. And then I was right after them.
So you was the third point guard in the country?
Yeah, pretty much.
You was the third point guard in the country, and essentially St. John's, Syracuse, all that pretty much was just on that list.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm going back and reflecting on this because your humility downplays it. It's like, oh well, I didn't play, I didn't play street ball and I didn't play, but you played in Entertainers Classic. And did you win? Did you win MVP? Was all this stuff? And we're talking about when you're talking about Entertainers Classic, this is not just no regular dudes you see at the YMCA. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm surprised that you are not mentioned. And look, God bless Sebastian Telfair. He has his right to his list. God bless all the brothers that put out the point guards. But I'm just tired of the fact, and this is the argument I had with people when they tried to phase out Wilt Chamberlain for Steph Curry. This is something I said, oh my God, are you crazy? Like it just gets to a point that we're not reflecting back on the past generation of basketball players and acknowledging them. And that really drove to, I was like, wait a minute, how he's not mentioning Mark Jackson, Sebastian Taylor, how he's not mentioning Rod
But,
Strickland?
but see,
He's saying he's better than them.
yeah, so he's acknowledging him. He's just saying he better. But what I'm saying is, I get your point, and I totally agree with it. But that's really not my personality. Like I can't do anything basketball related for other people's approval or acceptance. Because one thing I always learned, or I was taught, like even when you playing basketball, like if you really gonna be for the crowd, you're gonna hear the cheers and applause. If that's gonna move you, then those boos and that other side is gonna move you too. So like I've always been, I don't know what's the word. I'm a little different as far as like I don't need that approval from the other side because it's really no big deal to me once I get off the court. Because most of my peers know, like our buddy Leroy, he always joke. He said, "D, it don't matter what they think with the point guard." He said, "You the people." That's what he called me. He said, "You the people's champ." That's his line for me. So it's like the people who know, and the ones who don't. And in the bigger picture, what difference do it really make at this point? I mean, I wasn't a braggadocious type of guy when I played, except with you. So like at the end of the day, I'm not losing no sleep over that, and my life is not taking a turn for the better if I was to get that. So like, really, what difference do it make? That's how I look at it.
Yeah. If I said David Cain that Shea Gilgis Alexander, as we close in pretty much the halfway point of
Mm-hmm.
the season, I think we're around 41 games or so.
40, uh-huh.
If I said Shea Gilgis Alexander is the best point guard in the NBA, Would you have any pushback to that?
Um, you can make an argument for that. I would probably you can make an argument for him. I would probably go Luca a little. I think I would have Luca first. Um, and after that, it could be him. If you want more of the playmaking point guard, you can make an argument for Halliburton for what he's doing right now. Obviously, we need to see him do it in the postseason.
He's been hurt though, right? He's missed a little
He's been
time
hurt
being hurt.
recently, but he hasn't been injury prone in his career.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, depending on what type of point guard you like. But I think if you told me Shea was like, if you said he was your number one, I wouldn't give you no argument or think you bugging because I would probably have him two, I guess. So to be honest with you, he's probably my MVP right now if I was voting.
Right. So yeah, when I look at Shea and we look at like this, is what I was saying before, like what do you take in consideration for accomplishments? Like we talk about, you just said Luca. Luca doesn't have a better record. The Mavericks don't have a better record than the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Well, you didn't ask me about Dallas, Oklahoma City. You
Well,
asked me
but I'm
about Shea.
saying, Luca, you said he's your best point guard in the league.
So you gotta have the
How
best
much do
record to
we
have the better
discount
point.
winning when we come to sports? Like this is
I
a big
don't
thing.
I don't carry winning at the top of my list when we talking about individual comparison because why am I using a team concept to settle an individual debate? I don't do that. So there's been guys who've been on terrible teams that could be better than guys on good teams. So why am I using a team aspect to settle that situation?
So then let me ask you this: then when we look at the end of the Hall of Fame, right? It's
Hmm.
always a debate. It's always a problem with the Basketball Hall of Fame because it's always encompassing everything, which is odd because it encompasses college, international, but yet college has the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Hmm.
International has the FIBA Hall of Fame, and it's always college, international, and the NBA. When you
Okay.
look at those criteria and stuff like that, so you're saying winning doesn't really matter, or should it really matter to the individual accolades? Because how do you
Well,
differentiate guys that's putting up numbers on bum teams and they ain't going nowhere
I'm just going
or
by what I
garbage time?
well, well, that's you assuming it's garbage time. I'm just going by what I see. Like I know talent when I see it. So, like, just give you an example. So, if Michael Jordan never won a championship, was he not better than the guys? Then, like, he still wasn't the best player.
Oh, I agree with you. Listen,
All
that is
right.
the
So
argument that
okay.
we
So
always have. Whereas the fact is that I personally, I never thought Michael Jordan didn't have to win 6 championships. He didn't
okay,
have to win no championships. But we
exactly.
live in this era, like he could play. It's like the eye test. That's
So
all I tell you all the
and
time. I need to see the eye
that's
test.
all I'm going off of. So I don't need to look at what's on paper to tell me who's better than somebody. Now, if you want to say who had a better career, I know the Hall of Fame, so they take talent and accolades into effect. And I understand their process. And I understand if you want to rank, all that stuff at the Hall of Fame. But if you just ask me who's a better ball player, I don't need to look at nothing on paper or read anything to tell me that. I could just look at the TV and watch two players play and tell you who's the better player.
When we look at football, right? We're in the midst of the playoffs, and you talk about great ones and stuff. And I
Mhm,
always look at franchise quarterbacks, and then we always have this decision or discussion with regards to quarterbacks in
mhm.
terms of great players and stuff like that. What do you think makes a great quarterback in football? What do you think makes a player a great player?
I mean, it's different. It's different criteria because you have so many different styles of quarterback. So you have you have a quarterback who might be very precise passer. You might have one that might be very clutch. You might have one who's a dual threat who can pass and can throw. You know what I'm saying? So it's no one set criteria of what makes someone great, but the top ones kind of encompasses all of that. And I think that's what you see in Mahomes. It's kind of what you're seeing in Rodgers, but he didn't really capitalize on the clutches in the postseason. I believe as much as his talent kind of states he should have. Because if that was because I thought he was my GOAT quarterback forever.
Who's
Aaron
that
Rodgers.
again?
Aaron
Aaron
Rodgers.
Rodgers.
That's probably the best talent I've seen that quarterback until Mahomes came along. But
Okay, but then when we look at a guy like like Tom Brady, right? I've
Hmm.
always said, you've always said, like, I think that Bill Belichick being asked to leave, right?
Hmm.
Um, and the decline happened when his overall take was Tom Brady was done. And we always had that
I
discussion
don't
of
know. I don't
Brady,
know if that's the case though. I
but if
think he was.
Brady was it Brady, their success was tied to Brady, or was Brady a beneficiary of the success of the Belichick and all this stuff? And clearly, look, Brady came to Tampa Bay, my beloved team.
I don't want to talk about that, bro.
No,
Because
no,
we
but I'm just saying when you look at that, because I
okay.
got another one for you. Could we make a strong argument that if Lamar Jackson wins the next MVP, which inarguably he probably is going to,
Uh huh.
does he move a step closer into the neighborhood of Patrick Mahomes?
If he plays well, yeah.
Well, I mean, he's going to be there if he wins. He's all
Oh, you
in
saying
all
if he win an
likelihood.
MVP? No. Well, if he win an MVP, that's nice. But if he loses some this next weekend, you won't move closer to Patrick Mahomes.
Well, if he wins the MVP, but see, that's what I'm saying. You just said to me, winning,
No,
you don't take wins
I
in
take that back.
account.
If he
So that's
doesn't
what I'm
perform,
saying. Like, I'm confused by that.
if he
When
doesn't,
you're
you're
not,
right. If he doesn't perform, I don't care about Lamar Jackson being 1-3 in the postseason. He hasn't performed in the postseasons. That's the difference. Because you can, if you perform, that's all I care about is if you perform.
but when you say
He has
perform,
underwhelmed in the postseason.
okay,
His
so when you
performances.
talk about performance,
Yeah.
that's also from that position. And just in football, it's not like basketball where you grab the rebound, you can dribble the ball up, and you bring the ball up
But
and you
no,
score.
that's not true, G. Because
You
we can
got
see
to
it.
dribble, you got to throw the ball.
Yeah,
Hopefully, the receivers catch it.
okay. But I can see if you played well or threw the ball. Baker Mayfield, I watched your boys last night. They had 7 drops. So I'm looking at the game. I'm not blaming that on Baker Mayfield that they had 7 drops. If I'm watching the game, I don't need to see your completion percentage and know your receivers was dropping the ball today. I still know you played well. Your receivers just wasn't catching the ball. So I don't have to see the end result to know the process of what you was doing.
But also, the same can be said when a guy throws an interception, where he's throwing to where a player is supposed to be, as opposed, and the player's not there.
That's a possibility sometimes too. I think you make it more than the time, more than more frequent than what it is, but that's a possibility that happens at times. Not as much as you try to make it seem that way though.
You know who I
But
was.
I get
You
your
know
point.
what? Who I'm
I'm not messing with nothing Tampa Bay with you tonight, man. We're not gonna let the people see this, man. Everybody know he's emotional about Tampa Bay, and anything I say about Tampa Bay and their players, he gonna have a problem with it. So I'm not even falling into that trap today.
I was so upset when you used to kid on David Jameis Winston. I'd be like, yo, I would defend Jameis
I hope
Winston.
your listeners. I hope the listeners are listening and put in the comments if you think Jameis Winston was playing competent quarterback player at Tampa Bay. Please, somebody in the comments, please comment and let Jeru know how you felt about Jameis Winston quarterback player at Tampa Bay.
He played
That's all I need to know.
exceptionally well. It's just at times that, you know what, it was sometimes, you know what, it 50-50 blame. But again, when you
Soon
look
as
at good
Brady
quarterback
came,
play,
soon as Brady came and gave y'all competent quarter, he didn't even give y'all superstar quarterback play. Soon as he gave y'all competent quarterback play, you won a championship. Come
well,
on,
he
man. You
demanded
had the
execution.
pieces there when the pieces was there when Jameis was there.
But
Y'all
no,
was what,
but
9
see,
and
I'm
8
not gonna go
with
that far
Jameis.
because the pieces were
See,
there, but the pieces were not they didn't develop and evolve.
they
And the
developed the next year
expectation, no, the expectation rose when Brady came in. Because when you come in with that type of
because you got
hardware,
a better quarterback.
but also you shut up and listen. That's the thing where the guys are saying, look, we
G,
focus, it
they
changes
we in a
everything.
divisional round now with Baker Mayfield. Come on, G. They just needed competent quarterback. We don't even consider Baker competent.
Well, I think
If you
also
would have got, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
we got lucky. I think we found a team that was in
Oh, we got
turmoil
lucky.
that obviously really wasn't even focused on, they just it was
That's
almost like
part
one, two,
true.
three Cancun,
That's
you
part.
know.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
David Cain joining me here on Heavy in the Paint, Gerald Brown, breaking it all down. So Dave, let's go back to the hardwood. Uh when you look at the Western Conference, and I've been saying this and you've been saying this, and you actually said it longer than I did. How surprised are you at the Clippers and James Harden? And mainly, all the naysayers said that it was over. He's a cancer. He's this, he's that. And lo and behold, you look at the NBA governor, Steve Ballmer, who's done a phenomenal
Mhm.
job, and shout out to the Clippers front office. This will probably be maybe the third year that they have put together a roster, because you actually told me, you would say, hey man, you look at that Clippers roster, they're deep at that wing spot and they
Mhm.
play well. And I looked at them a lot closer. But when you look at Russell Westbrook, he's come in there, everybody's played a role. How surprised are you at the success of the Clippers at this juncture of the season?
I'm not surprised at all because I thought James Harden was a perfect fit for them from the jump. And I think people, I don't know if people really judge him properly coming out of Philly. I think at this stage of his career, he's not a consistent number two scorer on a championship caliber team. So that was his role in Philly, to be the number two scorer to Embiid.
Yeah,
So
the
when he was
MB.
going to the Clippers, so when he was going to the Clippers, I'm like, this is perfect because they got two scorers already. So now he can get more into his playmaking. If you got a third scorer who can give you 30 some nights, maybe a 40 piece here and there, that's right up his alley. So because if his scoring is inconsistent, that's okay for a third option. But his playmaking is prevalent for them. So I thought it would be perfect. He don't have that same burden he had in Philly. So I understood why the Clippers wanted him. And the proof is right there in the pudding right now. So I'm not shocked at all. James Harden is pretty much a great third option on the championship caliber team than the second option Philly needed him to be.
Well, you know what? Why is it working there and not it didn't work in Brooklyn? Because he had two competent scorers in Brooklyn.
Well, actually, it worked excellent in Brooklyn. If you remember, he was damn near getting ready to be MVP of the league. I believe he got hurt. He was a monster in Brooklyn. They just only played a certain amount of games together. But if you look at the games they played and the work he put in when he got to Brooklyn, he was getting like 25 and 14. Like that was a perfect situation for him, and he excelled in it. It's just everything happened with the injuries and the pandemic and all that stuff. That took away from him. But when those three was on the court, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was probably around 14 and 3, something like that. So it did work in Brooklyn when they was on the court together.
Is there an area you think they can upgrade at this juncture right now? Or is it just basically health is the best thing for them?
I think health is the best thing for them. I mean, they probably too deep at every position. I think Mason Plumlee just came back. I would like maybe one more body just for insurance as a four, maybe. You got the two centers, and then I think you starting like PG and Kawhi at the three and the four. So just maybe one more forward just for insurance purposes in case you run up against a big crew. And maybe slide PG to the two and Kawhi to the three and get a power forward in there to go with Zubac or Plumlee, whichever one is in the game. But
Dave,
other
what's
but
happened to
they got
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, no,
no,
go
they
ahead.
got a
Finish.
chance to get it done with what they got though.
What is your take on the Atlanta Hawks? Like this was a team that's what's it now 3 years removed from pretty much getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. You figure Trey Young was really on the doorstep of perhaps maybe that superstar status with the unbelievable
Mhm.
run. You know, many people thought that he would be perhaps the Steph Curry of the East, and the Atlanta Hawks, who had that amazing run. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden, everybody got paid for the most part, contracts, the spotlight, the attention, and this team has not been able to sort of recoup any of that success on a consistent basis. When you look at this team, what is wrong with them, and is it perhaps time that you should probably teams or the Atlanta Hawks might have to move on for Trey Young?
Well, I'm not moving on from Trey Young. I'm not doing that. I'm not getting rid of my best player. And I don't know. It seems like he's almost at that point where you have to kind of build your team around him a little different from most traditional, almost like in the Iverson mode a little bit, because he's a liability defensively. That's no shock. That's no hot take or nothing like that. But so you need a defensive oriented two maybe. I don't know. It just seems like the pieces don't fit almost. I don't know how many of them is different now than when they made their run to the Eastern Conference Finals. And once you make a run, you're not sneaking up on nobody no more.
Yeah,
So that part too. And I don't know. I really think it's hard. And I don't, Trey Young, well, you hear reports, whatever, about maybe what type of leader he is or whatever attitude stuff. I don't know if any of that stuff is true or not. But if your best player is really not like that uniter of a team, that's a hard thing too, especially when he's the one getting most of the shots and really not playing no defense. So that that can fracture a team's
yeah.
camaraderie.
When you look at the Miami Heat, Dave, and
Mm-hmm.
shout out to Eric Spoelstra getting the contract, and they
Man,
still just in this situation. Like you look up, they're 24-16, and just overall the success that they've had. But people still like. I think it's come to a point now that we don't write them off. I just don't see it because they're always going to be a middle of the pack team that, luck of the bounce of the ball, they
oh
could
no.
be a team that get there. I just don't see it consistently to say, okay, this is one of the
Well,
top 3 or 4
let me ask
teams.
you a question. Let me ask how you don't see it consistently when they just went to in the last 4 years they've been to 3 chips in the conference finals.
I
So
think a
is
lot
that
of
not
that
consistent?
I think that a lot of that has to be luck. I think they got
Three
luck.
years, 3 out of 4 years is luck. That's what you're gonna say.
I think some of that stuff, yeah, just the luck or some. I mean, last year, think about it. Giannis gets
Why was
hurt.
that luck? How
Well,
who
let's go
was that?
back with last year.
Let's go back.
Giannis got hurt in game 1?
Milwaukee lost one game that Giannis was out hurt.
Giannis got hurt, but he was still not the same player.
You he
And there,
do you
and,
know?
and truth be
No,
told,
I disagree with that. You know what his numbers was in them 2 games he came back? He had 40 something, and then he had 30 something triple doubles. So you tell me that wasn't the problem. He not healthy because he
well,
put up healthy numbers.
he put
So
up
that's not
healthy numbers, but let's be clear about one thing.
well.
And we know that's why Damian Lillard is in Milwaukee because you don't have that kind of a sense, second or third scoring option. Chris Middleton wasn't
No, no,
100% healthy.
you didn't have a closer.
He didn't have a closer, but Chris Middleton wasn't 100% healthy. Okay,
Chris
they
Middleton
are a
played
better
well.
matchup for
Chris
Miami. Is a
Middleton.
bad matchup for Milwaukee.
So that's not luck then. They just better than them then. That's not
Well,
luck.
they're a bad matchup. I think.
Then
I
I'm
think
better
that
than you.
they attack them in certain areas. But listen, this is the same Miami Heat team that realistically was about a quarter, if that, away from losing to the Chicago Bulls
Mm-hmm.
in the NBA in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the play-in tournament. So they beat the Chicago Bulls, and then they went on this run and
But
end
three
up
out of
in NBA Finals.
but 3 out of 4 years is not a fluky run.
Well, I mean, what do
And
you
what
say?
Atlanta,
They beat the
did
Bucks
is
again.
what you
Bad matchup
saying.
in the
So
bubble,
there's a
right?
bad matchup. There's a bad matchup for Boston too, right? Like, what are we gonna keep saying? They keep winning. You can't keep saying they're a bad matchup for somebody. They are just beating people. We got to give them credit. They not taking the regular season. Jimmy Butler is not caring about no regular seasons, as you can see. He barely plays. He has barely played this year. They still 24-16. They just coasted. Lakers got some of that in them too. They playing, but they just let's just stay a little bit in the mix. They not certain teams are not going full throttle throughout the regular season.
Yeah,
And then when the postseason come, we was always taught never think you could just turn it on with a switch, but some teams got that a little bit.
yeah, I think that's the case. Well, let's talk about these Knicks before we get on out of here.
Okay.
When you look at the Knickerbockers, they made the trade to get OG and Anunoby.
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy into the trade because I think that clearly, if you're talking about a team that is built for the regular season, this is a good trade for the regular season. But as we know, the deeper you're going to go in the playoffs, the more scoring options you're going to need. This trade only works if Julius Randle plays like the Julius Randle of the regular season.
Well, that was the same case if they didn't make the trade. So what you saying, they don't matter either way.
Well,
My
I think,
point is, when they get better in your eyes?
and I don't know. That's the question is,
You haven't watched them since the trade?
yeah, I don't think they've got. I
They-
don't know because I think the clear thing is, what
Bro,
are you
everybody
measuring
who
up
watches the
against?
Knicks know they look better now with somebody who's not ball dominant, holding the ball. you already got two ball dominant players. That third one was detrimental to them. Now you got somebody who get the same, pretty much the same points without the same usage rate.
Okay, but
And is a better defender.
Is he a difference maker?
What do you mean by what do you describe as
What I just said? Is he
I
a
don't
difference?
know. The difference
I
maker.
don't know either.
But I do know they are better. I don't know what that translates to how far they go. Do that mean they go to? But I do know they're a better team after that trade than they were.
If you look at where they were before, they were a second. When you look at what they were before, a healthy Mitchell Robinson and all the stuff, yeah, they'll get to the second round, right? But are they a team that can go past the second round?
I think if they had a healthy Mitchell Robinson, I wouldn't be shocked.
If they would have beat but I'm saying we know that was the Achilles heel for them against Miami. You couldn't get consistent second scoring option.
So yeah, obviously Julius Randle had to do his part.
So and I think that's the key thing is it's still you still mask the problem. The problem is still there.
If Julius Randle do his part, having Andrew OG makes them better than what they was than when they had the other ones.
But at the end of the day, is that a consistent? If he does his part,
then you way better.
Those numbers are going to be there come when you go. Because look, after the second round, you're talking about conference finals right there, right?
Let me tell you something. You want to talk about matchups. The Knicks matchup they give Boston all they can handle these last few years. And not that they're better than Boston, but they, like you said, matchup. They're a hell of a matchup for Boston.
Are they a hell? I don't know.
I don't even think Milwaukee. I wouldn't be surprised if they beat Milwaukee. Milwaukee is not that impressive.
Now you bugging. You really, really bugging. You think the Knicks would be able to beat Milwaukee? They have a chance of beating Milwaukee.
Yeah. If Mitchell Robinson,
what do you see? What do you see in that situation? Who's going to guard Giannis?
Giannis is going to get his 30 regardless.
Okay, then who's going to guard?
Who's going to guard Brunson?
Okay.
Did Julius Randle just not give Giannis and them 38?
But Julius Randle shows up in the regular season. We haven't seen Julius Randle in the postseason.
Everything is on your
Julius Randle, let's be clear, he's not a number 2 scoring option.
Everything is on your assumption that Julius Randle ain't gonna do what he do.
But he hasn't done it.
So we don't need to talk about the Knicks then. If that's your only argument, if they made a trade, they got better, but nothing matters to you, but because of Julius Randle,
he hasn't done it.
Okay,
that's like saying the Dallas Cowboys are always going to be favored to win the Super Bowl, but yet every time they go in the season, this and that, all this, but you haven't done it.
Okay,
we can't call them championship or Julius Randle first team or all-star. No, he hasn't done it.
Okay. I won't argue that with you, but I'm telling you, I don't really see no big matchup difference between those two teams. And Jalen Brunson fries them.
Well, yeah,
does what he wants against them. They have a better bench. I think at this point a better coach.
Well, I mean, he's a rookie. Stop it.
All right, but that matters though. So now
you're right. That does matter.
Okay, so I'm just naming the pros and the cons.
He's a rookie.
So why?
Rookie.
Okay, so why we not acting like that might not come into play?
I agree with you. That really, but don't say he's a better coach. He has more time.
He's what?
He has more experience, more time.
Okay, that's me. All right. Whatever reason you saying he better, I mean he's still better. Whatever you want to say because of how long he coached, you want to say the experience, you want to say coach, whatever the reasons are, it still add up to the same thing. He's a better coach than Adrian Griffin at this moment. Correct? We can agree on that, right?
Before we get on out of here, who's been the biggest disappointment thus far for you?
Biggest disappointment,
team-wise.
I think Sacramento.
Really?
I expected them to come back and take that next jump, and they just seem to really haven't had that same bounce like they had last year.
You know, I know you're taking a shot at me, right?
I'm not taking no shot.
I know that, and you do that all the time.
Oh no, Golden State. I thought Golden State should be better also.
Okay,
but I didn't have high expectations for Golden State. I had higher expectations for Sacramento coming in this year than I did for Golden State.
Well, it's funny because I look at Sacramento and see them I think they are where they're supposed to be. And the only reason why I say that is because if you think about it, last year was that Phoenix team, right? So last year, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, was it? No. Who's the team? It was last year's team. It was a team where I thought that clearly the way the season played out, they benefited from that. And that's being in a situation where Phoenix took a step back, right? So Phoenix, I think, took some steps back. Then you had a situation where the Lakers weren't that good.
They were the 4th seed last year, Phoenix.
Well, Phoenix was the 4th seed. It was the Lakers and it was somebody else, or Golden State. And I think Sacramento benefited from that. Sacramento, just in a
Are you
sense,
saying they didn't take a step up?
I
Everybody
think
else
they,
took a step
I think they take the step up. But when you had teams like that, like case in point, 2 years ago, when Chris Paul gets hurt and they take a step back for Phoenix, Memphis benefited from that. Now, granted, Denver was a team that was really the consistent team throughout the whole year. So I think that clearly, did they overachieve in some capacity? Yes. But I look at Sacramento, they're still a 5 seed. They're a 5th seed and stuff like that. So I'm not sitting up here saying, oh, well, I think that clearly they have underachieved because they're still right in the mix and being a 5 seed and a team that is going to be a once again in the playoffs. Whereas I look at Golden State, look, I think Golden State is going to make the playoffs. But if you look at that team, inevitably they're going to have to make some trades, right? Because
But we said that after they got knocked off last year.
yeah,
And they didn't really make no difference, no changes from last year to this year that would make us say, yo, they back in the mix.
I think the painful part of this situation is kind of reminiscent of what the whole situation with the Bulls, where one, I think kind
We
of
had this talk.
yeah,
We
we
had
had
this
this
talk.
conversation, and I think
I
kind
don't
of
think
I,
I don't think you let them age out, but you don't break them up after a championship neither.
but I think at
You
the end
you
of the
release
day,
it after
you
defending the
buy
crown.
you buy low, sell high.
They didn't
Buy
sell
low,
high. What did they
sell
get?
high. So you getting your guys in a situation where as they're riding it out. And if you look at the situation, let me ask you this. Do you think the perception of Jerry Krause would be different if he would have left after the second champ or the 4th championship? And they went on to win 2 more championships. He
If
would be
he would have
viewed
left,
as, He would
yeah,
be viewed
because he wouldn't have
differently.
made because he wouldn't have made the Bozo move of breaking up a team that just three-peated.
Okay, but here's
So
the
yeah,
thing
they would be
also.
viewed differently.
Look at Bob Myers. Look how Bob
Uh-huh.
Myers has left. His
Yeah,
reputation is intact.
yeah. And it
Intact.
would have been intact, but it would have been intact after this year because they
Nah,
2 years
so
removed
you
from
think
winning.
Bob Myers, you think that there would have been no pushback if Bob Myers was still the GM now and saying, hey, you know what?
Dude,
We got to trade
you
Steph
think
Curry.
no, but you're not trading Steph. That don't
Well,
even
what
make
I'm
no
saying,
sense.
if you had to do that,
But you don't have to. So that's a. But
you got to trade Clay Thompson.
there will be no pushback right now if they
So
don't resign Clay
you
Thompson.
think there's no pushback if he had to, the GM, if
Every,
Bob Myers, the GM, had to trade Steph Curry, Clay Thompson?
I don't think so. His reputation would be intact because everybody can see what Clay is right now.
But
First of all,
David, it's the emotional pull and it's the understanding at the
so
end of
you
the
want to say
day.
from Golden State fans?
Yeah.
Maybe. What about the rest of the world? Everybody else who basketball fans can say, I see why he did that. Clay
I
ain't
think,
himself no more. Clay can't defend no more. He's a streaky shooter now. So me as a fan, I wouldn't say, damn, Bob Myers did Clay wrong. Like, bro, he's not that no more. And
I
that's
beg
just
to
a fact.
differ.
Now, if you would have traded Clay after winning a championship, then yeah, you would get some pushback. Like, yo, bro, they just won a championship. You ain't even gonna let them try
But
to figure it out or repeat.
at
That was
some
my beef with
point,
Chicago. They hit a three-peat, and you don't let them try to defend that. That's
because
crazy.
we don't know it's the thing is we let them do this. And the crazy thing about it that I've said so many times, even on the Bottom Line Sports Show, every Saturday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Shameless
I like
plug.
that plug. I got
Oh,
you.
Sirius XM NBA Radio Channel 86. Is the fact is that nobody blames Jerry Reinsdorf, the governor of the
Nobody
Bulls.
gives Jerry Reinsdorf credit for putting the team together neither.
Right, but no, he didn't put the team together. Jerry Krause put
Okay,
the team
then.
together.
So Jerry Krause can put the team together, but we ain't gonna say what you trying to say. He didn't make the decision to break it up.
Yeah, he didn't make the decision. You don't think he made the decision totally?
I'm not. don't get me totally. Did he? If he made the decision to put the team together, if you have the power to do that, you have the power to do the other side.
I gave you the perfect example when Marvin Bagley Jr., the
I just asked
Sacramento
you a
Kings
question.
governor, wanted Marvin Bagley Jr. Vlade Divac wanted Luka Doncic. They
All
took
right.
They took Marvin Bagley Jr.
From
The
what we
owner.
know, factually, not what you think or what's not a
Oh, it ain't what factual.
possibility.
So why did Vlade
Let me.
Divac? He quit.
No,
He
I'm not
resigned.
talking, brother. I'm not talking about Sacramento. I'm talking about the Chicago Bulls situation. For what we know factually, could Reinsdorf, whatever, maybe we don't know. But as far as what we know, what the perception is and publicly, whatever, Jerry Krause was the architect of the team. Jerry Krause made the decision to go in a different direction. That's what's on file. Whether it's true or not, that's kind of like what's on file. Now, we can hypothetical it all day long after that. But what we kind of know, he made the decision to move on from Phil. So, in reality, so push Mike out the door. So he has to wear that. If you're gonna give him, if we're gonna call him the architect of one of the greatest dynasty ever, one of the greatest ever, then he got to. If he had all that juice to do that, now you trying to sit here and say he didn't have the juice not to do that. We just got to. We can't keep coming up with our own theories and ideas. We got to go on with what's as factual as we know can be at this point. That's fair, right?
I think it's fair, but I think it's unfair because at the end of the day, you buy low, you sell high.
But they
And
didn't sell high because they didn't get nothing.
hey, they didn't sell high, but you know what? There was the fear of sitting around and letting your player age out like the Celtics. That was
How
the
are they?
biggest thing.
Gee, how would Larry
And I wish
Bird
that
wasn't?
Jerry Krause was here to this day to be able to basically answer those questions. Because I think a lot of people sit back and say, oh, he just made a decision, all this stuff. Where at the end of the day, there was money being made off of this. So if this was a team
Gee,
that they had the aspirations of making the finals again and winning another championship, you think that Jerry Reinsdorf would say, hold on, no, we just gonna go with it? No.
let me
I mean, there
let me
was a
ask you a
report I
question.
told you, there was a report where there was a try to trade, I think, Scotty for Tracy McGrady.
Let me ask you a question, brother. What team has ever aged out when they still had the best player in the league on their team? That has never happened.
Larry Bird and Celtics.
Larry Bird was not the best player in the league
He
when
was the
that
best
team.
player on his team.
I didn't say his team. That's not what I asked you. Mike was still the best player in the league.
But
How are we aging? How are we aging out with
to
that?
an end. It was coming to an
It
end.
wasn't coming to an end. They just won the chip. What are you talking about?
And you know what? That challenge was a lot. They went 7 games.
They didn't go 7 games. They never win 7 games.
They never went 6 games. I'm sorry.
Okay, they win 6 games 6 years before that.
And they
So
struggled to beat. They struggled. You saw what they had to do to get past Orlando. Come on. It was no.
to get past Orlando, they swept Orlando.
They swept Orlando, but the year prior to that, when Jordan came back, you
That's because he
had them
came
on
out of
the horizon.
retirement. That's because he came out of retirement, my man. And that was 3 years prior. So you telling me you got a show, Bottom Line Sports Show, every Saturday, 10 to 1, Sirius XM. Y'all are the #1 show for 3 years in a row, and the producers come to you like, yo, man, we need to change the time slot, man, because I don't. You be like, for what? You be like, because I just think it's getting stale. I don't want it to get stale. You be like, this is what's working. If it's working, you leave it alone so it's not working no more. At least let it play out. And if you would have been like, yo, all right, well, give me a year.
It plays out, and then what do you have?
Then you break it. You had the same thing you had the year before. If they would have went that next year and struggled and make it, then break it up after that. You at least out of respect, you gave them a chance to defend their three-peat. Like, gee, who breaks up after a three-peat and say we on the decline?
Because you got 6. You got 6.
So what? Let's get 7.
I don't
Let's
know.
get
Man.
8 if that's what it called for. At least I'm gonna give you a chance to try to get it.
I just thought it was real sad that they had to boo.
I agree with that. I agree with that. That was tough. That was tough, man. I ain't feeling that. But that go to show you how people feel. feel about the decision that you co-signing though?
Well, at
Like,
the end
yo,
of the day, because people sometimes people I think are looking at it from a fan's perspective, and there's also a business aspect to it. So you know
but
what?
none of us
You're
on the
trying to see
business
both of
side
that.
of it. But none of us is on the business side of it.
I know that. But I'm just saying
So
it's
why
like
would we care
okay,
about that perception then?
because
And I
you
don't
know
even
what?
agree with
It
that
takes a lot
either.
to build a team. So at the
Huh?
end of the day, it takes a lot to build a team. So at the end of the day, the credit we gave to him to build it, why not we
Yeah.
give him the credit and say, well, yo, he rolled the dice. It didn't work out. Fine. But we're not
All
going to
right. So you
vilify
take
the guy.
you take the heat for it. You rolled the dice for a decision that 95% of people knew was a bad decision. Like this wasn't no 50-50 like a draft pick, like this a hit or miss. Nobody thought that was a good decision to break up Michael Jordan, to run Michael Jordan off your team. He telling you, if you bring another coach in, I'm not playing. And what he do? Go hire a coach who ain't never coached in the NBA. You think that was smart?
So
When
you
Michael
think
Jordan's
that
still the
he
best player
hired
in
the
the league?
coach? You think he signed off on the coach? And do you know that Jerry
Oh,
Reinsdorf, the governor for the team,
mm-hmm.
never, with the exception of Billy Donovan, never had coaches that had previous head coaching experience. See, that's why I'm saying, like, when we talk about the
But
blame,
they wasn't championship. They wasn't champions neither.
but okay, and
So why? Of course, you keep hiring coaches with no experience when you ain't really in no contention. But
I
when
don't
you
think he
got,
was going to pay. I don't even think he was going to pay Phil.
that's the problem.
So
That's
you
the problem.
okay? So that's not Jerry. That's not Jerry Krause. That's Jerry Reinsdorf.
No, no. But no. Once you said it,
Krause
that's what
wasn't
you
signing
think.
checks. Reinsdorf
You
did.
you keep trying to take Jerry Krause off the hook with your hypothetical. You said I don't think they was. We don't. They knew before the season. Mike said I'm not playing for no other coach. All of we remember back then, Jerry Krause, that was his situation.
Yeah.
Now, if he rounds off this behind the scenes, we don't know that. So Jerry Krause got to eat that without us knowing what Ronsoff did. So that's for him. We don't say Jerry Ronsoff built the dynasty. He don't get no credit for that, right?
He does it, but I think at the end of the day, we're
Man,
gonna
you need
leave
to
it at
start a
that.
poll on here on your show Saturday. How many people think that was the best decision to break up the
Well, of course,
Bulls
somebody's
after?
gonna see that, but I think hopefully when
Then
people
that's the
listen to
reason
this,
why.
I think hopefully when people listen to this, maybe just look at it from a different perspective and say, I mean, was it the ego? Because I mean, at the end of the day, look, it's a lot different than when Jerry Jones fired Jimmy Johnson because he wanted to be the general manager because he was the owner of the team.
Okay.
That's the purpose of sometimes having general managers. They're going to take the heat for the owner. Look at Phil Jackson when he was in New York for James
Usually
Dolan.
when they do that, the owner, but usually when they do that, the owner takes the credit when they go good.
Well, that's the
If
whole
if
thing.
that's their agenda. That's not what happened in Chicago.
Well,
Jerry Ronson wasn't coming out saying, I put this team together. I did this. He
no,
wasn't on that type of time.
no, he
So
didn't have to.
so if he didn't do that, why would I think he would do it on the back end?
Well, he didn't have to though. But Mr. Cain, I appreciate your time, man.
No doubt, brother. Appreciate you having me.
Nothing but love you, man. And we got to do this again because
Yeah, man. I'm gonna become a regular. I'm gonna become a regular on here, man. And
well,
I
you
ain't
know
even
what?
gonna charge you, man.
Well, you know what? Oh my goodness, the legendary. What are the best point guards ever to come out of New York City? New York City. I started saying Adlai Stevenson had high school, even
There
though
you
he was
go.
living
That's
in
all good.
Harlem.
Chill. The statute of
You
limitations ain't up.
know,
I
Bronx Fighters.
appreciate you, bro.
Legendary David K. right here on Heavy in the Paint.
Oh man, peace.
Peace.